He had no dignity. That's what I was missing. There was no dignity. It just looked like a man desperate for attention. And whenever DeSantis was scoring points on him, he would interrupt over and over to try to talk over the points as just that's like a middle school debate tactic, which is pathetic and not effective.
In a special session to figure out how to sue Trump while LA is burning. And meanwhile, Gavin's going out there all the time being like, well, boy, it'd be really terrible if Trump, withheld disaster aid or heaven forbid, required that we, get our shit together. And then literally he's like, we're going to sue him for implementing the agenda he was elected on by a majority of the American people.
So it's just an MSNBC agenda. It's just a silly, rich way.
Yeah. Gavin Newsom has spent years carefully crafting a polished public image, one designed to shine under studio lights. But when Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson turn their focus on him, that shine fades fast. The smooth delivery, practiced smiles, and speeches filled with buzzwords start to crack. Kelly cuts straight through with sharp criticism, while Carlson adds his signature dry humor. Together, they don't just question Newsom's policies, they peel back the performance, exposing a figure that looks impressive on the surface, but feels empty underneath.
Newsom has decided to hire 2 young whippersnapper press people who look a lot like the Karine Jean-Pierre press pool, like the people she was using in her press office who look like these, weird hats and strange haircuts and like the Rainbow Coalition. So he's hired 2 of those folks to write his tweets, and here's an example of where it's going. His entire tweet feed has turned into imitations of what might be a Trump tweet.
California announced it was going to ban all gas-powered vehicles, and a lot of people laugh because Gavin Newsom, who runs the state into the ground, is now a third world country, is a moron. Obviously, he just says whatever on the card. And of course, California doesn't have enough electricity to have electric cars. They can't keep the lights on. So how are they going to power the future of vehicles?
Newsom makes himself an easy target because he presents as untouchable. Every appearance feels carefully staged to project confidence and authority, almost as if he's selling the image of California itself. But Megyn Kelly quickly punctures that illusion, pointing out how thin the substance behind the branding really is. Beneath the tailored suits and polished sound bites is a governor whose leadership often feels scripted instead of grounded in real results. His political identity leans heavily on optics, with carefully framed moments meant to distract from the state's growing problem.
Now, he's a far left progressive, and Bill Maher just came out in favor of him. But he's the most radical Democrat in America. Honestly, his politics may be left of the squads. He would be a hard no. I don't care how good his hairline is.
Tucker Carlson follows by sharpening the critique, arguing that Newsom's career prioritizes presentation over performance. He compares Newsom's speaking style to a non-stop audition, full of dramatic pauses and sweeping rhetoric that promise progress but rarely deliver it. Whether the topic is homelessness, public safety, or failing infrastructure, the pattern stays the same. Elegant speeches paired with limited outcomes. Carlson suggests the story always sounds inspiring, but the plot never actually moves forward.
In addition to all the other problems that California has, housing prices there are higher than any place in the country. The median home price in the state of California is now more than $800,000. That's more than double the nationwide median. In recent years, because this really is a problem, leaders in California have passed dozens of bills they claim would fix the problem. Governor Jerry Brown, the last guy, signed 15 housing bills just in 2017. Last year, Gavin Newsom signed 18 separate.
The conversation then shifts to Newsom's fixation on appearances. He casts himself as a bold leader of the future, yet his approach often resembles that of a social media influencer, built on curated visuals, dramatic sound bites, and constant self-promotion. Megyn Kelly calls this out directly, accusing him of treating California like a film set. The backdrop may look polished, but the problems behind the scenes remain unresolved, even as wildfires, housing shortages, and economic pressures continue to shape everyday life.
Forgive me, but it looks like a nuclear bomb hit the region. Just a huge swath of one of our most beautiful cities is gone. So all these politicians are done. They don't appear to know it, but Mayor Bass, your career's over. You're probably going to be recalled and kicked out of office. There's a change.com petition with over 100,000 signatures. She's going. I don't know if she knows that. Gavin Newsom, same. You're effed. Stop telling us about the ember.
Carlson then zeroes in on what he calls the clearest contradiction: Newsom's public preaching versus his private behavior. The infamous French Laundry dinner resurfaces as a symbol of the gap between the rules imposed on citizens and the exceptions enjoyed by leadership. While Californians face strict restrictions and economic hardship, Newsom appeared comfortable playing by a different set of rules. Carlson frames this not as a one-time mistake, but as a pattern. Discipline for the public, flexibility for those in power.
They work? Not at all. They did not work for the people who live in California, but they weren't intended to work for people who want to buy houses. Instead, those bills had one purpose: destroying suburban homes and replacing them with high-density housing. Real estate developers make more money when single-family homes are leveled and replaced with apartment complexes, obviously. And real estate developers happen to be major donors to the Democratic Party of California, and in particular to
Megyn Kelly expands the critique by connecting that moment to a broader theme of elitism. She argues that while Newsom often speaks about fairness and equality, the real-world impact of his policies falls hardest on middle and working-class families. California's wealthiest residents remain largely protected, while others face rising costs and shrinking opportunities. Carlson adds that under Newsom, the state has become a national example of what happens when image replaces accountability, likening his leadership to a captain delivering motivational speeches while the ship quietly takes on water.
Mount Rushmore, thank you, -GCN, with an image of Newsom on Mount Rushmore. Then there's a poster image of Kid Rock pointing like Uncle Sam. It reads, "Kid Rock wants you to support Gavin Newsom." Captioned on X, "I accept -GCN. Kid Rock, by the way, replied, saying the only support Gavin Newsom will ever get out of me is from D's nuts.
Then comes the question of ambition. Newsom's national aspirations are hard to ignore. Every out-of-state appearance, every cable news interview, and every high-profile speech feels like preparation for something bigger. Megyn Kelly jokes that he seems more focused on rehearsing a future campaign than governing California. Carlson piles on, mocking the idea that the rest of the country is eager to adopt California-style leadership. The criticism is clear. Newsom appears more invested in how he looks than in how his policies actually perform.
He's correct. He's hurting himself with his liberal base by doing these interviews of people like Charlie and Steve and Michael Savage. It's because the thing about Gavin Newsom is he's not very good at pushing back. So he's not going in there and doing battle with the Charlies and the Bannons of the world. He's somewhat obsequious.
One of the sharpest criticisms centers on accountability, or the lack of it. Carlson points out that when problems arise, Newsom is quick to shift blame elsewhere. Whether it's the economy, political opponents, corporations, or vague systemic forces, responsibility rarely circles back to his own decisions. Megyn Kelly reinforces the point, arguing that real leadership means owning failure, not constantly deflecting it. Meanwhile, Californians continue leaving the state in large numbers, even as Newsom promotes it as a national model, creating a glaring gap between rhetoric and reality.
George Marcus was one of Gavin Newsom's biggest donors in the recent recall elections. So this week, after surviving the recall, tragically, Gavin Newsom rewarded those real estate developers with the biggest, quote, housing bill ever. Newsom just signed a series of bills, most notably SB 9 and SB 10, that will abolish the suburb.
As the critique builds, a central theme becomes clear. Newsom often confuses confidence with competence. He projects certainty, but once the polish is stripped away, the record underneath raises serious questions. Megyn Kelly emphasizes that charm can't replace outcomes, and that leadership is ultimately measured by results, not presentation. Carlson dismantles what remains of the image, highlighting contradictions, stalled initiatives, and policies that failed to deliver on their promises. What's left is a brand that looks strong from a distance, but struggles under close inspection.
Association, which represents, quote, interests of builders and developers of housing and commercial projects. there are about to be quite a few new commercial projects in California's suburbs. As the New York Times put it, quote, SB 9 essentially ends single-family zoning. Property owners now have the state's approval to convert any single-family home in the state of California into a 4-unit apartment.
When the laughter fades, the larger message comes into focus. According to Kelly and Carlson, Newsom's leadership leans heavily on performance. His press conferences feel more like motivational talks, heavy on encouragement and light on solutions. Kelly criticizes his tendency to celebrate progress that hasn't fully materialized, suggesting he's mastered the art of praising effort over achievement. The critique cuts deep because it challenges not just his policies, but his entire style of governing.
Newsom is doing right now with this podcast, because I've said I'm against conservatives going on his podcast because I think it's helping him train for 2028.
Yeah,
I don't think we should help him.
I agree completely. I didn't think that. Obviously I know Gavin Newsom. I text with him occasionally. I am from the state of California. I'm from originally San Francisco. And I have relatives who know him. And I've been familiar with Gavin Newsom for a long time. I know his ex-wife. I have been bothering him for years. Like, you should come on my show. And he was kind of open to it. And then he whips around and he's like, no, you should come on mine. I was like, oh, I would love to, because I would love to debate him about what he's done to my.
Carlson then turns to the financial reality facing Californians. The state collects some of the highest taxes in the country, yet continues to struggle with public safety, housing affordability, infrastructure reliability, and energy stability. He mocks the idea that budgets are treated more like symbolic statements than practical plans, arguing that residents are paying more while getting less. Kelly highlights another contradiction: Newsom's role as a national voice on environmental policy, even as California deals with power outages, water mismanagement, and ongoing energy challenges.
Then I watched a parade of people go on, some of whom are good friends of mine, by the way, conservatives go on his show, and I realized, and I'm not attacking them at all, I almost did, but then I realized, oh, wait a second, this is like, this is not, the point of this is not to have a real conversation or to answer questions. The point of this is to rehabilitate. And I would say of Gavin, like, he's legit smart. I don't think there's anything at all at the core other than misery, another deeply, deeply unhappy.
The final segment focuses on public safety. Major cities across California have seen rising crime, yet Newsom often responds with broad messaging instead of concrete action. Megyn Kelly reminds viewers that leadership ultimately means protecting citizens, not just delivering polished speeches. Carlson closes with pointed humor, suggesting that California's reputation under Newsom has shifted from aspirational to cautionary. By the end of the discussion, the carefully built image appears dismantled, revealing a leader defined less by results and more by presentation. What remains, they argue, is a warning about what happens when performance takes priority over governance.